Foundations of glass. The first time Nora Kapoor realized that her husband was slipping away from her wasn't during a heated argument or a missed anniversary. It was during a quarterly board meeting for Meridian Tech, the company they had built, together from nothing but caffeine-fueled coding sessions and ambitious dreams. The neural architecture implementation was primarily Vikram's vision, said Jeffrey Palmer, their chief marketing officer, gesturing toward her husband. He's the genius behind our success.
Oh.
Nora watched as Vikram Dar, her husband of 7 years, and co-founder of their now $800 million company, simply nodded and accepted the praise. Not a word about how she had spent 3 sleepless weeks debugging the core algorithm. Not a mention of how the vision had been sketched out on their kitchen table during one of their midnight brainstorming sessions. The whiteboard had been equally divided between their handwriting. Thank you, Jeff. Vision without execution is hallucination. As they say, Vikram replied smoothly. His custom-tailored suit a far cry from the faded hoodies he wore when they first met at Stanford's computer science program. We have an exciting roadmap ahead. We. At least he still said we. That night, as Nora settled into bed, one hand resting on her growing belly 5 months, along with a baby girl, she watched Vikram work at his desk across their spacious bedroom. The board seemed impressed with the quarterly results, she said, trying to bridge the widening gap between them. They should be. We're projecting to hit $1 billion in valuation before the end of the year. He didn't look up from his laptop. I'm flying to Singapore next week to meet with potential investors. Next week? But my amniocentesis results. Reschedule it, Nora. This deal could expand our Asian market presence by 30%.
Nice.
Nora's throat tightened. The doctor specifically arranged this appointment because of the complications from last month. You promised you'd be there. Vikram finally looked up, his expression a mixture of impatience and condescension that had become increasingly familiar. We're building something bigger than ourselves here. The medical staff is perfectly capable of handling routine pregnancy matters without me holding your hand. The dismissal stung, but it wasn't unexpected. 6 years ago, when they were still working out of a converted garage, they had made a pact. Nora had been the one to suggest putting the core patents and intellectual property in her name. Safeguard against potential legal challenges from Vikram's former employer who had made veiled threats about proprietary knowledge. It's just a precaution, she had said as they signed the papers. Everything we build will always be ours together. Vikram had kissed her then, with the passion of a man who saw his partner as his equal, not his accessory. 3 weeks later, Dr. Josephine Wainwright placed Nora on partial bed rest. Your blood pressure is concerning, Mrs. Dar. The placental issues we identified require careful monitoring. Will this affect the baby? Nora asked, trying to keep the tremor from her voice. With proper care and rest, we can manage the risks. Oh, but you'll need support at home. Is your husband available to help during this period? Nora thought about Vikram's increasingly empty side of the bed, the late-night emergency meetings, and the subtle shift in how staff at Meridian looked at her with something like pity. He's very busy with the company, Nora replied carefully. What she didn't say was that their chief financial officer, Rohan Malhotra, had pulled her aside last week with uncomfortable news. Vikram had been authorizing substantial consulting fees to Celeste Winters, a former runway model with a questionable marketing background who had been hired as Director of Strategic Initiatives, a position that hadn't existed before. I thought you should know, Rohan had said quietly. The board hasn't questioned it yet, but the expenditure patterns are ... unusual. That night, as Vikram packed for yet another critical business trip, Nora made her request. The doctor says, I need someone here. Just for the next few weeks until we're past this critical period. Vikram barely paused as he selected cufflinks from his collection. Hire a nurse. The company can cover it. I don't need a nurse. I need my husband. Our daughter needs her father. For a moment, something flickered across Vikram's face. Guilt, perhaps annoyance at being reminded of responsibilities he'd rather ignore. It's just a baby, Nora. We can have more if that's what you want. Right now, I have meetings that will determine Meridian's future for years to come. As the bedroom door closed behind him, Nora placed both hands on her belly, feeling a determined kick from within. "Don't worry," she whispered to her unborn daughter. "We don't need him to determine our future." She reached for her phone and dialed Rohan's number. It was time to review exactly what those intellectual property agreements entailed. The fracture point Nora sat propped against pillows in the master bedroom, surrounded by printouts of legal documents and corporate filings. Her laptop hummed beside her, displaying a spreadsheet that tracked Vikram's recent expenditures, a digital trail of betrayal, quantified in dollars and cents. The house was quiet except for the occasional ping of incoming messages from Rohan, who had become her unexpected ally. "Have you seen this?" I read his latest text, accompanied by a link. With a deep breath, Nora clicked. The headline from a popular tech blog blazed across her screen. Meridian Tech's Vikram Dar spotted in Monaco with mystery woman. Below was an unmistakable photo of her husband, arm wrapped around Celeste Winter's waist, boarding a private yacht rented on the company account, according to the expense reports Nora had been reviewing. The baby kicked, as if sensing her mother's spike in heart rate. Nora placed a steadying hand on her swollen belly. "I know, little one," she murmured. "We always suspected, but seeing it is different." Her phone rang. Jennifer Patel, her closest friend since college and Meridian's head legal counsel. "I assume you've seen it," Jennifer said without preamble. "Just now." Nora's voice remained calm, surprising even herself. "The yacht is on the company account. That's the least of it." The board is in panic mode. Palmer called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. "They're worried about shareholder reaction." Nora closed her eyes briefly. "And what about my reaction? Does anyone care that my husband is parading his mistress around Monaco while I'm confined to bed with his child?" "You know I care," Jennifer said softly. "Which is why I'm calling. This isn't just a personal crisis, Nora. It's a corporate vulnerability that threatens everything you've built. What are you suggesting?" "Been reviewing the founding documents? The ones you signed 7 years ago when you put the core patents in your name?" Nora glanced at the stack of papers beside her. "I'm looking at them right now. Then you know you have more power than Vikram realizes. He's been the face of Meridian for so long, he's forgotten who actually owns the foundation it's built on." Text message interrupted their conversation. Vikram, finally responding to her earlier message about the doctor's concerns. "Don't stress, bad for the baby. Back next week. Handle appointment yourself. No mention of the photos. No acknowledgement of Celeste. It's just dismissal, as if Nora were merely an employee with a scheduling conflict." "Jennifer," Nora said, a new resolve, hardening her voice, "I want you to draft the papers. All of them. I want options on my desk by morning. Are you sure?" "Once we start this process, he's making choices, Jennifer. Now I'm making mine." After hanging up, Nora opened her email to find a message from Dr. Wainwright containing her latest test results. The placental issues had stabilized, but her blood pressure remained concerning. The doctor recommended continued bed rest and stress reduction. Nora almost laughed at the irony. Reduce stress while her husband publicly humiliated her and endangered the company they'd built together. Instead, she opened her laptop and began composing an email to Rohan. The doorbell rang. Startling her, it was nearly midnight. Who would be visiting now? Carefully, Nora made her way downstairs, one hand on the railing, the other protectively over her belly. Through the security monitor, she saw Priya Sharma, Meridian's PR director, shifting nervously. On the doorstep, Nora buzzed her in. "I'm sorry for the late hour," Priya said, her normally composed demeanor frayed at the edges. "But you need to see this before it hits the morning news cycle." She handed Nora her tablet. It's open to a gossip site's exclusive. Tech Titan's Mistress speaks out. Vikram plans to leave his wife after the baby. The article featured quotes allegedly from Celeste, describing how Vikram found his marriage stifling, his creative vision, and how he planned to start fresh once his obligation to the pregnancy was fulfilled. "It gets worse," Priya said grimly. "Celeste claims he's promised her a position as chief brand officer with equity compensation." Nora handed the tablet back, her expression unreadable. "Thank you for bringing this to me first. The board is split. Palmer and his faction are suggesting a narrative where you step back from operations. For health reasons, while Vikram guides the company through this personal matter, they're worried about market perception. And what do you think, Priya? The PR director straightened her shoulders. I think they're underestimating how much this story could resonate if framed properly. Tech has a well-documented problem with female founders being pushed aside. Your situation could become a rallying point if you're willing to fight. For the first time that day, Nora smiled. I've never been more willing to fight in my life. After Priya left, Nora called her obstetrician's direct line, thankful for the after-hours access her status afforded her. Dr. Wainwright, I need to know my realistic limitations. Not what's ideal, what's possible. I have critical business decisions to make in the next 48 hours, and I need to know what my body can handle. The doctor's response was measured but clear. Limited movement mandatory. Rest periods, no unnecessary stress, but with proper monitoring, she could engage in essential business activities. Your pregnancy is precarious but not dire, Dr. Wainwright concluded. Whatever you're planning, just remember your daughter's health depends on yours. I understand perfectly, Nora replied. This is all for her future. As midnight passed, Nora made 3 more calls to her parents, who immediately arranged to fly in from Mumbai. To her brother Raj, a financial analyst who had warned her about Vikram's changing behavior months ago, and finally to Daniel Wong, Meridian's quiet but brilliant chief technology officer who had always seen her as the true innovator behind their success. By 2 a.m., she had a war council assembled virtually, Jennifer outlining legal strategies, Rohan analyzing financial implications, Priya drafting media responses, and Daniel assessing operational continuity. On her nightstand, her phone lit up with a notification. A new photo had surfaced, Vikram and Celeste toasting with champagne. The Mediterranean sunset gilding them in deceptive glory. The caption read, 2 new beginnings. Nora took a screenshot and sent it to her team with a simple message, tomorrow, we reclaim what's ours. As dawn broke, her phone rang again. It was Vikram, finally calling to do damage control. Nora, listen, he began, his voice carrying the practiced contrition of a man who believed his charm could still salvage the situation. No. Vikram, she interrupted calmly. For once, you're going to listen to me. Calculated measures, the Meridian Tech headquarters gleamed in the early morning light, its curved glass facade reflecting the sunrise like a temple of innovation. Inside the top-floor conference room, 5 people sat around the mahogany table. Laptops open, expressions resolute, despite her doctor's concerns. Nora had insisted on being physically present for what would become the most pivotal day of her professional life. The board meeting starts in 3 hours, Jennifer said, sliding a folder across the table. These are the finalized documents. Once you sign, there's no turning back. Nora, dressed in a tailored maternity suit of deep navy, opened the folder. The legal language was dense, but the intent was crystal clear, invoking the intellectual. Property agreements that placed the company's core technology, the neural architecture that powered their AI solutions, under her sole ownership. What's our exposure? Nora asked, eyes fixed on Rohan. The CFO adjusted his glasses. Financially, we're on solid ground. The company has sufficient cash reserves to weather any market volatility. The real question is investor confidence. Is why timing is everything, Priya interjected. We need to control the narrative before Vikram lands. His flight from Monaco is scheduled to arrive at 2 p.m. Daniel Wang, who had been quietly typing at his laptop, looked up. The system transfer is ready. At your word, we can migrate access protocols and administrative permissions. Vikram will be locked out of all core systems within 15 minutes. Nora nodded, feeling her daughter kick as if in agreement. And the employees? I've drafted the company-wide memo, Priya said, respectful but firm. We acknowledge the leadership transition while emphasizing continuity and our commitment to Meridian's mission. A notification chimed on Nora's phone, a message from her mother. We've arrived at the house. Everything is prepared for when you return. Knowing her parents were nearby gave Nora an additional measure of strength. She turned to the final member of her coalition, who had been silently observing from the corner of the room. Gabriella, what's the board's temperature? Gabriela Reyes, the youngest and newest board member, had been appointed 6 months ago to represent a major institutional investor. Her presence in this clandestine meeting was the biggest gamble in Nora's strategy. "The board is divided, Gabriela," said her voice steady. "Palmer and his faction are prepared to back Vikram. They see him as the visionary. But 3 members are troubled by both the personal scandal and the financial improprieties Rohan uncovered. With my vote, you have a narrow majority, and your fund's position? My partners recognize that Meridian's intellectual assets, which you legally control, represent the true value of our investment. They've authorized me to support leadership that protects those assets." Gabriela's smile was small but significant. "Besides, we've always believed the market undervalues companies. With female leadership, this presents an opportunity to prove that theory." Nora took a deep breath and signed the documents with a steady hand. "Then let's proceed." What followed was a masterclass in corporate choreography. What? As Jennifer filed the legal documents electronically, Daniel initiated the system's transfer. Rohan froze certain financial accounts while preserving operational capabilities. Priya prepared the public relations strategy, coordinating with trusted journalists for the inevitable media storm. At 8:45 a.m., exactly 15 minutes before the market opened, Nora sent a simple text to Vikram. "Check your email." The message waiting in his inbox was equally succinct. Vikram. "Effective immediately. I am exercising my rights under Section 7.2 of our founding agreement. Transferring operational control of Meridian Tech to myself as majority, intellectual property holder. Your access to company systems has been suspended pending board review. The board meeting will proceed as scheduled at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Your attendance is requested via video conference. Nora Kapoor, Acting Chief Executive Officer, Meridian Technologies, Inc. The response was immediate, a flurry of calls that Nora declined, followed by increasingly frantic text messages. "What the hell are you doing? This is a misunderstanding we can fix. You're risking everything we've built. This pregnancy is making you irrational." Nora forwarded the messages to Jennifer without comment, adding evidence to their case of Vikram's dismissive attitude toward both her and their child. At 9:30 a.m., as the team prepared to move to the main boardroom, Nora's phone rang with a call she did answer Celeste Winters. "You bitch," Celeste hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Vikram built that company. You were just the support system." Nora activated the speakerphone, ensuring her team could witness the exchange. "Actually, Celeste, I built the core technology that powers every product Meridian sells. The intellectual property documents confirm that. As for being a support system, that role is now available to you. I suggest updating your resume as your consulting contract has been terminated." The profanity-laden response was cut short. As Nora ended the call, Jennifer said with raised eyebrows, "That should make for an interesting addition to our documentation." At 10:45 a.m., they entered the boardroom, where board members were already gathering, faces tense with confusion and concern. Jeffrey Palmer approached immediately, his usual smooth confidence replaced by barely contained anger. "Nora, what is the meaning of this? These legal filings? This is corporate suicide." "Actually, Jeff," Nora replied, her voice carrying across the room, "it's corporate salvation. Please take your seat. The meeting will begin shortly." As the board members settled, screens around the room displayed real-time data, stock price volatile but holding, social media sentiment trending but mixed, and a countdown to the press release scheduled for noon. At exactly 11 a.m., the video conference system activated, revealing Vikram's face and shaven eyes, bloodshot. The pristine background of his Monaco hotel room contrasting with his disheveled appearance. "This is an illegal coup," he began without preamble. "I founded this company. I am its vision and its future." Nora allowed his tirade to continue for precisely 1 minute before raising her hand. The room fell silent. "For the record," she said, her voice calm and clear, "I'd like to correct a factual error. We founded this company together, Vikram. The difference is, I respected both our partnership and our marriage. You chose to honor neither. She nodded to Jennifer, who distributed comprehensive packets to each board member. Before you is evidence of Mr. Dar's misappropriation of company funds for personal use, including expenses related to his extramarital affair with a contractor, whose qualifications for her role are questionable at best. You'll also find documentation of the intellectual property agreements that form the legal basis for today's leadership transition. Gabriela Reyes spoke next, her voice carrying the weight of the institutional capital she represented. As fiduciaries, our responsibility is to protect shareholder value. The actions taken today, while unprecedented, appear legally sound and necessary to prevent further damage to the company's reputation and financial standing. The vote, when it came, was 5-4 in favor of confirming Nora as interim CEO with a 90-day review period to assess the transition's impact. As the meeting concluded, Vikram's final words echoed through the video feed. "You won't get away with this. You're 7 months pregnant, for God's sake. Can't run a company in your condition." Nora stood, one hand resting protectively on her belly, the other placed firmly on the boardroom table. "Watch me. At noon precisely. As planned, the press release went live, accompanied by a professionally shot photograph of Nora in her office, confident, composed, and unapologetically pregnant. The headline that would dominate tech news for days read simply, "Meridian Technologies announces leadership change. Co-founder Nora Kapoor takes helm as CEO." By day's end, as Nora finally returned home to the comfort of her parents' presence, Meridian's stock had stabilized. The company's largest clients had been personally reassured by Daniel and Rohan, and a message from Gabriela confirmed what Nora had hoped. Investors are watching closely. But early feedback is positive.
Now they're calling it the most elegant
corporate chess move of the year. As she settled into bed under her doctor's orders, Nora placed both hands on her belly and whispered to her daughter, "Today we showed them what we're made of. Tomorrow, we build our future." Reversal of fortune. The October sun streamed through the windows of Nora's corner office, bathing the modernist furniture in golden light. 6 weeks had passed since the takeover, transforming both Meridian Tech and its interim CEO. Nora's pregnancy had progressed to 8 months, her body a testament to the dual burdens she carried: motherhood and corporate leadership, both arriving sooner than expected. "The quarterly projections are in," Rohan said, sliding a tablet across her desk. "We've exceeded expectations by 17%. Nora studied the figures with quiet satisfaction. The Winston contract made the difference. A contract Vikram had all but surrendered to competitors, Rohan noted. Your personal intervention salvaged it. The memory of that pivotal meeting remained vivid. Nora, visibly pregnant yet formidable, convincing Winston Enterprises leadership that Meridian's recent turbulence represented evolution, not instability. Sometimes we must shed what no longer serves us to become what we're meant to be, she had told them, words that resonated beyond business. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Gabriela Reyes entered, impeccable in a tailored suit that had become her boardroom signature. "The transition committee has completed their assessment," she announced. "The recommendation is unanimous. The interim qualifier should be removed from your title." Nora's surprise must have shown on her face, as Gabriela continued with a rare smile. "Even Palmer voted in favor. Claims he's seen the light, though I suspect he's simply recognizing which way the wind is blowing and the board. The vote is scheduled for tomorrow, but it's a formality at this point. Meridian's performance under your leadership has silenced even the most skeptical directors." After Gabriela departed, Nora wheeled her chair to the window, gazing out at the Seattle skyline. The city had become her battleground these past weeks. Each decision, each public appearance, a strategic move in reclaiming. It's not just her company, but her narrative. The media coverage had evolved from salacious scandal to business. Case study. Meridian Reset, the Wall Street Journal had called it. How Nora Kapoor transformed personal betrayal into corporate renaissance, according to Forbes. Even the tech blogs that had once breathlessly documented Vikram's affair now analyzed Nora's leadership style and technical vision with newfound respect. Her phone chimed with a notification from her calendar. Dr. Wainwright, 3 p.m., with a sigh of relief, Nora gathered her things. These medical appointments had become sacrosanct, the one commitment she refused to reschedule regardless of business demands. Jennifer's waiting downstairs. Her assistant Zoe informed her. She says there's an update on the settlement negotiations. During the elevator ride to the lobby, Nora mentally prepared for the two conversations ahead, one about her daughter's imminent arrival, the other about finally severing professional ties with the man she had once built dreams alongside. Jennifer was waiting in the sleek company Audi, tablet in hand. "He's accepted the basic terms," she said as Nora settled into the back seat. "Board resignation, non-compete for 3 years, equity conversion at current market value, and the non-disparagement clause." That's where he's digging in his heels. His lawyer argues it infringes on his free speech. Nora gazed out at the rain-slick streets. What he really wants is the freedom to rewrite history, to paint himself as the wronged visionary rather than the architect of his own downfall. Precisely. But here's where it gets interesting. Jennifer swiped to a new document on her tablet. "We've received a separate communication from Celeste Winters. She's offering information in exchange for ... considerations."
What kind of information?
Apparently, Vikram has been approaching our competitors, offering insider knowledge about Meridian's technology roadmap. He's careful not to violate any explicit agreements, but the intent is clear. He wants to damage us. Nora absorbed this with a calm that would have been impossible 2 months ago. Forward everything to Daniel. Have him assess which projects might be vulnerable and accelerate our patent filings. At the medical center, Dr. Wainwright delivered welcome news. Despite the stresses of recent weeks, Nora's condition had stabilized. The placental issues had resolved, and the baby was developing perfectly. "You've managed the impossible, Mrs. Kapoor," the doctor said, reviewing the latest. Ultrasound. Most patients in your situation would have struggled to maintain this level of health under normal circumstances, let alone while executing a corporate takeover. "I had motivation," Nora replied, watching her daughter's profile on the monitor. "An exceptional support?" That support extended beyond her medical team. Her parents had postponed their return to Mumbai, transforming the guest wing of her home into their temporary residence. Her brother Raj had taken leave from his position in London to help navigate the financial complexities of the transition, and within Meridian itself, a coalition of allies had emerged. Bound by loyalty, not just to Nora, but to the company's original vision, as she returned to the car. Jennifer's expression signaled more developments. Vikram's lawyer called. "He's agreed to the non-disparagement clause on one condition: a face-to-face meeting with you alone." Nora considered this as they pulled away from the medical center. "When he's suggested tonight. His flight leaves for Singapore tomorrow." "Morning, Singapore," Nora echoed, where this all began to unravel. The decision crystallized with surprising clarity. "Tell him I'll meet him. The Four Seasons lobby, 7 p.m. Public enough for safety, private enough for conversation." "You." "Sure, that's wise." Jennifer's concern was evident. "In your condition, my condition is precisely why I need to do this," Nora interrupted gently. "This chapter needs to close before our daughter arrives." Four Seasons lobby, with its soaring ceilings and discreet seating areas, provided the perfect setting for their confrontation. Nora arrived deliberately 5 minutes late. A small assertion of power that didn't go unnoticed by Vikram, who rose from his chair as she approached. He had lost weight, she realized. The designer suit hung slightly loose on his frame, and the confident posture that had once commanded boardrooms seemed diminished. Yet his eyes still held that magnetic intensity that had first drawn her to him at Stanford. "Thank you for coming," he began, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Let's be clear about what this is," Nora replied, easing herself into the seat. "This isn't reconciliation or negotiation. It's closure." Vikram nodded, his gaze dropping momentarily to her belly, before returning to her face. "You look well. Pregnancy suits you. Leadership suits me better." A flash of the old anger crossed his features. "Is that what this is about? Proving you could run Meridian without me?" "No, Vikram. This was never about proving anything to you. It was about protecting what we built from your self-destruction." She placed both hands on her belly as the baby shifted position, and about securing our daughter's future. "Our daughter," he repeated, the possessive pronoun sounding foreign on his lips. "I've been thinking about her, About what I want to. Tell her someday when she asks about me. It's entirely up to you. Settlement doesn't prevent you from knowing her, only from using her as a weapon against me or Meridian. Vikram leaned forward, his voice dropping. Is that what you think of me? That I'd weaponize my own child? You said it yourself, Vikram. It's just a baby. Those were your exact words when I needed you most. Nora's tone remained even, but her eyes conveyed the depth of that wound. You made your priorities clear. For the first time, Vikram appeared genuinely chastened. I never should have said that. I was. It's caught up in my own importance. Yes, you were. And Celeste encouraged. That tendency, didn't she? She made you feel like the visionary genius the world had failed to fully appreciate. His silence was confirmation enough. Where is she now? Nora asked, though she already knew the answer from Priya's intelligence network. Singapore, presumably. We're no longer together. She left once the Meridian connection and funding dried up. Vikram's jaw tightened. She had her own agenda. I see that now, as did you. Nora straightened in her chair. I've approved the settlement terms, including the non-disparagement clause. Meridian will announce your formal resignation tomorrow, citing your desire to explore new opportunities. Your equity will be converted at a fair valuation, leaving you a very wealthy man. And what do you get from this arrangement? A peace. Closure, and confirmation that my judgment, both personal and professional, has been restored. As she rose to leave, Vikram reached for her hand, stopping just short of contact. I underestimated you, Nora. I always thought I was the visionary. But you saw everything more clearly than I ever did. The difference between us, she replied, is that I never saw our success as a solo achievement. Even now, leading Meridian alone, I recognize that our greatest accomplishments came from collaboration. She turned to go, then paused. One last thing. Our daughter's name will be Lila. It means divine play in Sanskrit, a reminder that life unfolds according to its own wisdom, often despite our plans. As she walked away, the weight of Vikram's gaze followed her, not with the entitled desire of the past or the simmering resentment of recent weeks, but with something that might have been, finally, respect. Outside, the autumn rain had stopped, leaving the city gleaming under streetlights. Jennifer waited in the car, concern evident on her face. It's done, Nora said simply as she settled into the seat. Have Priya prepare the announcement for morning, and then let's go home. Tomorrow, we begin the next chapter. As the car pulled away, Nora received a notification on her phone. Final board vote had been tallied electronically, confirming her permanent appointment as CEO. The timing felt prophetic, cosmic affirmation of the path she had chosen. Her phone rang Daniel Wong, working late as usual. The prototype passed its final test, he announced, without preamble. The neural architecture optimization you suggested increased processing efficiency by 23%. It's revolutionary, Nora. She smiled, feeling Leela kick as if celebrating with her. That's wonderful news, Daniel. But can we discuss the details tomorrow? Tonight, I need to rest. Of course, congratulations, by the way, on everything. As the car wound through Seattle's hills toward home, Nora watched the city lights blur into streams of possibility. The settlement with Vikram wasn't just the end of one chapter. It was permission to fully embrace the future she was building, both for Meridian and for herself. Her parents would be waiting with dinner, her mother's cooking filling the house with the sense of home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new opportunities to prove that her vision for Meridian was right all along. But tonight, the first time in months, Nora Kapoor would sleep peacefully, one hand resting on her belly, the other holding the future she had reclaimed through courage, intellect, and an unwavering belief in her own worth. Asterisk reclamation, the soft, winter light filtered through the nursery windows as Nora gently rocked 3-month-old Leela in her arms. The baby's eyes, dark and alert like her mother's, tracked Nora's face with a focus that seemed impossibly mature. She's going to be brilliant, said Priya, who had stopped by the house to review strategy for tomorrow's annual investor meeting. She already is, Nora smiled, placing a kiss on her daughter's forehead before settling her in the bassinet. 4 months had passed since Leela's birth, relatively uncomplicated delivery that had resulted in a healthy vocal baby and a mother who had returned to work with renewed purpose after a 6-week maternity leave. The nursery adjoining Nora's office at Meridian headquarters had raised eyebrows initially, but quickly became a symbol of the company's progressive approach to work-life integration. The quarterly results exceeded projections again, Priya noted, handing Nora a tablet displaying the latest financial reports, and the new neural interface project is generating significant industry buzz. Meridian had not merely survived its dramatic leadership transition, it had thrived. Under Nora's direction, the company had refocused on its technical foundations while expanding into emerging markets. The stock price had increased 40% since her permanent appointment as CEO, and talent acquisition had reached unprecedented levels. Women in tech applications are up 70%, Priya continued. Your profile in Business Insider last month is still generating social media conversation. The article The Renaissance of Meridian, How Betrayal Became. Ow. Breakthrough had featured a striking photograph of Nora in her office, Layla asleep in a carrier on her chest as she conducted a video conference with their Tokyo partners. Nora's phone chimed with a message from Daniel. Winston, implementation complete. Client beyond impressed. Celebration dinner tonight? The Winston contract, the one she had salvaged during her pregnancy, had blossomed into Meridian's largest partnership to date. The success validated what Nora had known all along. Relationships, built on mutual respect and genuine value, ultimately prevailed. Have you heard from him? Priya asked, the unspoken name hanging between them. Vikram. Not directly. Nora adjusted Leela's blanket. His new venture in Singapore launched last month. The press release was carefully worded, but the implication was clear. He's attempting to recreate what we built, minus the constraints of our approach. Will he succeed? Nora considered this. Perhaps in his way. He has talent and charisma. What he lacks is, she paused, searching for the right word. Integrity, Priya suggested. Perspective, Nora corrected. He still sees success as personal victory rather than collective achievement. As if sensing she was the subject of discussion, Leela stirred and let out a small cry. Nora lifted her daughter, feeling the perfect weight of her against her shoulder. That evening, the celebration dinner with her leadership team, Nora rose to offer a toast. Round the table sat the people who had stood with her through crisis and triumph. Jennifer, whose legal brilliance had secured their future. Rohan, whose financial stewardship had steadied the company through turbulence. Daniel, whose technical vision complemented her own. Priya, whose strategic communications had transformed scandal into strength. And Gabriella, whose belief in Nora's leadership had swayed the board at the critical moment. To Meridian, Nora began, raising her glass. Not just to what we've built, but to what we've become, a company that values innovation and integrity equally. Later, as she tucked Leela into her crib at home, Nora reflected on the journey of the past year. The betrayal that might have broken her had instead revealed her strength. The crisis that threatened to destroy Meridian had ultimately purified its purpose. On her nightstand lay a small envelope that had arrived that morning, no return address. Postmarked from Singapore, inside was a simple card containing just 3 lines. You were right. Well, she's more than just a baby. Congratulations on everything. It wasn't an apology, but Nora hadn't expected one. It was acknowledgement of her vision, her victory, and most importantly, of the daughter who represented not just their shared past, but her reclaimed future, as she drifted towards sleep. Nora's thoughts turned not to what she had lost, but to what she had gained. A company true to its founding principles. A daughter who would grow up seeing her mother's strength, the profound knowledge that sometimes, when the foundation crumbles, you discover you were the cornerstone all along. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the relentless pace of innovation. The demands of motherhood, the complex legacy she was building. But tonight, in the quiet sanctuary of her home, Nora Kapoor was simply grateful for the fracture that had forced her to reclaim her power and reshape her world on her own terms.